check. Testing 1, 2, 3. If you can hear me, let me know you can hear me in the live chat, please. If you're able to hear me, so I can. Okay. Looks like people can hear me. All right. All right. So you guys can hear me. Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, viewers, whoever you may be, whatever part of the world you may be in. Okay. This is your BWAJ Criminal Analysis channel. And yes, we are live. All right. So, I'm not sure, but the majority of people, I would assume, has read this book. But maybe you haven't. But don't worry, that's what I'm here for. Okay. Now, this is a book that's about 300 plus pages, or maybe more, maybe a little less. So at this moment, there's no way I'm going to talk your ears off with the whole book right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this thing section by section, and we're going to cover the whole book. Don't get me wrong. We're going to cover the whole book, but we're going to do it in moderation, okay? So, before we get started, all right? Cuz this is not clickbait, all right? I repeat, this is not clickbait. I bought this book off of Amazon. So, yes, I actually have it in front of me. Yes, all right. So, okay. The book starts off with a nice little quote from a woman named, and I might pronounce her name wrong, but her name is Anais Nin, okay? It says, "Love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source. It dies of blindness and errors and betrayal. It dies of illness and wounds. It dies of weariness or withering or tarnishings." Okay? So I'm not familiar with the author of that quote, but that's in the very beginning of the book. So I will assume that that was placed there on purpose. So maybe once we finish the whole book, maybe that quote will make more sense to us. So, okay, as far as the people in the live chat, all right? Now, most of you are familiar with Kindle, which is a program provided through Amazon where you're able to buy online books and read them via Kindle. So I'm sure most of you are aware of that. If you're not, Google it and you'll find out. But I have the book pulled up on that, okay? And I'm bouncing in between, reading your comments and things of that nature. So we're just gonna skim through the beginning of the book, which is titled Introduction. And love Chamarcus, you are absolutely right by your comment. So we're gonna tread lightly, okay? What we're gonna do is the best way I see that we can do this to avoid me getting copyright strikes and things like that, like you brought up, is we'll read certain sections of the book and we'll have a discussion on it and interactive things like that. so we can try to get a gauge of what's the new foretelling confessions that Chris gave. But as I proceed, the beginning is labeled introduction, of course. It says, as you read the true story of Christopher Watts, the familiar murderer, you may think you are reading about a Hollywood horror film. As I was writing, many times it felt more like things I have seen in a movie. However, this is a true story. Christopher Watts pled guilty to killing his pregnant wife and two toddler daughters. He killed them and disposed of them in a brutal and disgusting way. Heartless could be a good way to describe it. He gave me very intimate details, accounts of the things he has not been able to talk about, things he has not told the FBI or even his family. Because Christopher is an introvert, telling his true story from the platform of this book enabled him to get the whole truth out. I ask that you please save all judgments until you have read the whole book. I'll let you then decide how you feel about Christopher Watts, the familiar murderer, and how he did this. Excuse me. Christopher, by law, is not allowed to make any money from this book. When we discussed writing this book, he told me he just wanted to have a chapter where he can give his testimony of forgiveness and and how he came to know God. He also says he wants to help others. That would be a trade for him giving me the information. The Watts family made it very clear they felt it would be wrong for them to take any money from the book. So that is a section out of the introduction of the book. So I'm going to go on to the next page. Let's see. Okay. Another insert out of her introduction says, um, it says that the Watts family was more than generous to help me with the information. However, some is very troubling. I want you, my dearest readers, to understand I tried to write this book as unbiased as possible. What happened to Shanann, her baby boy, and her two beautiful daughters is the most horrible of tragedies possible. None of them deserve any of this. The three children were pure souls that had nothing to do with the proceeding of the murders. Shanann was a beautiful mom and a trusting wife. Their marriage may have been going through rough times, but she certainly did not deserve what happened. As horrific as the murders were, the fact that they were murdered by their husband and father, whom they trusted, is unfathomable. This book is my account base of extensive research of what led up to during the murders and what has transpired since. 5 lives, including Christopher's, all needlessly taken, and the immense pain of many others' lives touched by this tragedy. My information for this book was given to me by Christopher himself, along with his family and some friends. My goal is to tell this travesty with the utmost respect to Shanann, Bella, Cece, or Celeste, baby Nico, and all family members involved. So there's more to the introduction portion of the book, but like I stated earlier, I don't want to veer into the lines of copywriting issues, although I bought this book myself. So, to me, you know, I should be able to read as much as I want to, but you never know how YouTube perceives things. You never know. So we gotta just be careful. So I'm gonna skip about 2 pages ahead. All right, and I'm gonna start on page 4. It says, as I watched the crime unfold, I wanted to be able to come to some conclusion why this seemingly normal man would do something so heinous as to put his 2 baby girls in large battery containers of crude oil. Little did I know I would soon meet and come face to face with the monster that did this. On the first day, I saw him on television, and I felt I wanted to contact this man, and I wanted to write a book about his story. I thought by writing the book, I'll be able to find out why he would do something like this. Our relationship started by letters and evolved into face-to-face meetings through the letters and phone calls throughout writing the book. So that's just another excerpt out the introduction portion of this book. The actual introduction is a few pages long. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna skim over and see if any more foretelling information is in the introduction, and we'll try to go on a little bit further. But like I said, the introduction is pretty long, so maybe since we trying to tread waters lightly, so I don't get all types of copyright strikes and things of that nature, maybe we should slowly but surely, you know, start off by going through the introduction. Therefore, once this live show gets posted onto YouTube, I'll be able to see what type of backlash or consequences I might have to face behind doing this, so that more valuable information won't just go to waste, if you know what I mean. So she goes on to say, our conversations on the phone and in person were being recorded. Excuse me. Christopher felt it was safer and more private to send me letters with his confessions. He knew the sole purpose of our communications was to plan to write a book about him, and he also knew that I would end up writing would what I would end up writing, would not always be to his liking. Christopher does not like being called a murderer. Let's pause right there. Okay? Christopher does not like being called a murderer. Yet that's exactly what the hell you are, Christopher. Alright? Christopher. She says he cares about what people think of him, and he couldn't stand that he is hated or a hated man. However, he gave me the information and allowed me to write the book in exchange for writing and publishing his testimony of coming to God and the forgiveness he received. His story is moving, and it is told in his words. All right. So, this is my thoughts so far on the little things that we've read and went over so far. All right, especially the most recent thing I just read. All right. Now it really does confuse me on how in the world Chris can do something like this, kill his pregnant wife and his 2 children that are alive, were alive, and act as if no one would, turn the eye towards him. He acts as if we all gonna treat him like he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize or something. Like, get real, Chris. Now, I understand, and I'm all for people who like to find God at the times of crisis and when their life seems to be completely over and they're broken down so far that they reach out to the highest upmost, which is God, and they find a new meaning to life. So kudos for that, Christopher. But at the same time, we as a people and as a public, we don't have to hold you to a high standard that you think we should. And we don't have to give you that same forgiveness that God gives. We don't have to do that, Chris. Yes, people look at you like a monster. Yes, we look at you like a cold blooded murderer. Why? Because that's what you are. Alright, I'll carry on. It says that I knew his crave for some sort of human interaction was also worth whatever he needed to go through or to hear about himself. At times, it was difficult for him to repeat to me the things he had done and what led up to killing his family. In court, the day of the sentencing, he could not bear the things that were being said about him. Oh boy, it really makes me mad to hear this semi sympathetic role that Chris is appearing to play. And it's like, if he's acting this way and talking this way through the words of letters to this author, imagine how he's portraying himself in prison and to his family members and things of that nature. He doesn't deserve any type of real sympathy. He does not. He doesn't deserve to be treated like a regular human being in society. He doesn't deserve to be treated like a person who got caught stealing candy from a grocery store. No. You did the utmost worst thing that you can do in the eyes of the same God that you seem to have now found. You went against every aspect of what the God that you just found wants of his people. Not only did you commit murder, but you killed your children. You killed your wife, in which you married her in the eyes and the love of God himself. It does not make sense to me. It does not. So, I'm going to pause right there on this introduction portion of the book. And I'm going to open up my live chat just to see what you guys are saying. Okay. So, Love Chamarcus says, I have to admit this author was a little all over the place compared to the book. My Daddy is a Hero. You should check that one out. I saw that on there. Did she write that book as well? Because I didn't get a chance to see who the author was. But when I was looking for this book, I did see a book by that name, or by that title. So maybe that is an interesting book. Tracy Wells says, at least a new book she is qualified and has an editor and half of the price of Cato's. Okay. And then you say people think more were involved and he didn't do the killings himself. Well, Tracy Wells, I would say it's safe to say at this point that with all the quote unquote new information that he provided in this book that we'll come to find out as time go, that if anyone was involved, not, I think this book would definitely tell it. I think this book would definitely tell it. Not only has FBI and CBI has not been able to find any indication that anyone else was involved, but once again, with all these new foretelling confessions he has been doing, one thing we can say is not once has he implicated anyone else. He seemed to have done this completely on his own. Connie Gustafson, you say, I don't think the letters, I'm sorry, I don't think there were letters with Chris Watts and Cato. You say, I think this book is propaganda. I don't, Connie. Let me tell you why I don't think that, right? I don't think this book is propaganda. I think this book is exactly what it's supposed to be and what it should be. Meaning, around this whole world, people are caught up in the loop of the whole Chris Watts family murder. So, not only is it's needed, for the different people around the world, this book is needed. Also, Chris is in prison for the rest of his life, as you know. And it's not out the realm of reality for a prisoner who's doing life to want to write letters to someone who's willing to listen and confess things that they probably couldn't say before. As she mentioned in the beginning of the introduction portion, she said there's a lot of things he didn't feel comfortable saying in front of the judge and in front of his attorney and stuff like that. So it kind of does make sense that in a letter form he was able to be more forthcoming with information, and thus she puts it out in the form of a book. Tracy Tracy says, I think that's why he jumped on the shadow. NK lies about everything. Well, that's an interesting opinion. Interesting opinion. So, Connie says, yeah, but the book has so many inaccuracies and it isn't even plausible. Even for fiction, it wouldn't be plausible. Well, okay. So I see, Connie, that you looking at it in a very literal aspect, right? And I get it. So what I would suggest would be, all right, this crime happened in August of 2018. We're now in December of 2019. So if I were you or any other viewer or listener, when it comes to the Watts case and this new book that's put out, if I were you, I would take this book and try to take something from it to ease your concerns and your wants and needs as far as information about what happened during this case. Because at this point it's either you got to take what's being given to us, or you will spend more years to come wondering and thinking, you know. So since this book is supposed to be written from actual letters from Chris, we don't have a way of actually confirming or denying that literally. Like, we ain't literally seeing the letters, so it's possible that you know this can be a lie. But if I had to go with my gut feeling, I would say the chances of this all being a floozy is slim to none. And once again, this is about the best that you will be able to get as far as closure to what you think happened on that night. So take it for face value, but nevertheless, take it. Take the information. I'd rather figure out what is true and explore it for years than just believe what I'm told for the sake of comfort. Now that I can understand, Connie. But once again, it's like, the thing is, by people in the world, not just you, I'm just saying people in general, by people wondering and trying to explore for years to come, the thing about it is it's a closed case. So there is nothing for you to explore and figure out. It's already been explored and figured out for you. Judgment has already been cast down on Chris. He's already paying for it. Now, if this was a case of Chris got away with murder, and we all as a people is trying to investigate and explore it so we can bring some justice, then that would totally make 100% sense. But in this case, once again, justice has already been served. Exploration has already been done. Everything has already been pretty much done. And at this point, you know, everything is in retrospect. It's now at this point, all we can do is really look back. You know, all we can really do is look back. As far as official information is what I'm speaking on, Connie. As far as I'm speaking on official things. Yeah, of course, as regular human beings in life, yeah, of course, we can always ponder and wonder and put clues together about things. We can do that forever. But I'm just speaking officially as far as what's going to come out from the masses to the public. But let's carry on. I'm going to skip to the next page. Okay. She says, he told the FBI that he was killing Shanann. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. She says that he told the FBI that when he was killing Shanann, he couldn't take his hands off her neck. He wasn't himself. He says it was like something was standing behind him and making him do it. He knew if he told me he was blaming something other than himself for the murders, or if he denied that the responsibility of killing Shanann and the girls fell solely on him and only him, I would not write his story. He is completely adamant the hands that killed his family were being held tight against his victims and would not allow him to stop. A person does not lose the ability to choose one's own free will and make choices. His crimes is made up of several choices, all of them wrong. This story captured attention from literally millions of people. The internet was full of YouTubers, Facebook posts, television, and newspaper updates. Still today, 9 months later, there is something new on YouTube posted about his case almost every day. When I saw the interview on the front porch of Christopher's home the day after the murders, his desperate plea for Shanann and the girls to come home screamed guilt. His body language, the way he would smile or smirk, gave the appearance he was almost relieved of something. It was clear to almost anyone that was watching the authorities need look no further. Evidently, the police felt the same way because they never looked for anyone else. It clearly was a front to cover up what really happened, begging for his family to come home. Go to the next page. When he knew they couldn't come home, makes one wonder if the haughty way he was acting meant he thought he would get away with killing his family. He says on that morning, when he gave the interview on the front porch, he did not have much memory of the details of what had happened. He knew he had killed his family. He just couldn't remember all of the circumstances surrounding it. The cocky way in which he acted in front of the camera was just a cover-up for the nerves he was feeling. Christopher now says he doesn't remember much about that day on the porch and giving the interview. He has been told about it and does not understand why he would have acted that way. He told the authorities at the time that nothing made sense to him. He holds to that still today. So let's stop right there. So according to Chris, right, he does not vividly remember all of the circumstances leading up to the killings or dealing with the killings, to the point that he doesn't even remember or can tell us why he conducted himself the way he did when the news station had that interview with him on his front porch. He says to this day that none of it made sense, and he does not understand why his actions, were portrayed the way they were. Of course, I gotta call bullshit on that. I call bullshit on that for one main reason. Chris, if you were able to write all these pages of a letter to give to an author detailing the most crucial and brutal parts of what you did, there's no way in hell you can tell me that you don't remember why you acted and conducted the way you did on that news interview in front of your house. Stuff like that, when Chris says stuff like that, it just irks my nerves. Okay. Christopher has said the circumstances of the murders have come back to him in pieces, and since that was just the next morning after the murders, he was so traumatized that he couldn't remember much about the murders. Is this because he was insane or just didn't want to remember to the point his brain shut down? So that's like I'm going to assume a hypothetical question that she asked. Because clearly, the answer is the fact that he just didn't want to remember. So, for those of y'all who didn't hear that hypothetical question she asked, she said it's speaking on him being so traumatized about the murders, he couldn't remember the information the next morning. She says, is this because he was insane or just didn't want to remember to the point his brain shut down? He just didn't want to remember. That's all. There was no insanity in his face. He was relieved. He was happy. He thought he was going to get away with this. So, she goes on to say, when a person experiences a traumatic event, adrenaline rushes through the body and the memory is imprinted into the limbic system. Consequently, after trauma, the brain can easily be triggered by sensory input, reading normal circumstances as dangerous. Even his father-in-law in the sentencing called him an evil monster. Whether it is true or not, Christopher only knows. Maybe do not believe he couldn't remember. Yet, even though self-induced, he did suffer from tremendous trauma. Okay. She says his circumstance that he went through was tremendous trauma. He was so traumatized that's why his memory was so fuzzy and selective. Well, how about this, Miss Cato? Explain to us why his memory was so, chopped up because he was traumatized. He couldn't remember nothing, right? But he was able to give us a whole damn story on how Shanann killed his child. He walked in and saw her. He became so enraged that he choked her to death. He became so scared at that point that he decided to drive 45 minutes away, carefully bury her, cover her up, and then proceed to put his daughters in 2 separate battery tanks filled with crude oil that he knew once they went in, they would never come out. Does that sound like a traumatic, stressed out person to you? No. Not to me. Maybe to someone else, but not to me. So I'm going to pause right here. and jump into the live chat to see who what you guys been saying. Because while I'm reading this, I'm not able to see what you guys are saying, so excuse that. Okay. YouTube is changing. Definitely. That's why I only stick to one or two channels. I'm glad to see you here though, okay. Okay. Wayne Ware says BWAJ, I would be curious to hear your thoughts on the alternate theory Miss Mensa and others put forward. I feel that at the very least they expose what this could have looked like had it went to trial. So now as far as Miss Mensa and others alternate theories, I'm not aware of them. So if you would like to, Wayne Ware, feel free to give a brief description of what the alternate theory is, and I'll love to give you my feedback on it real quickly. Connie says, "Nah, Queen, I think it's just a portion of the people on YouTube with the Chris Watts case. Not all of YouTube, but I'm not certain." Okay. Connie says, "Yeah, I'm calling bullshit on this book. She isn't even keeping facts straight." Okay, which part sticks out to you, Connie? Let's do that. What part sticks out to you as far as what makes you want to call bullshit on it? Tell me. I guess it'll be very interesting once we make it to the actual recount of the murders itself. That'll be very interesting. Like the trip to North Carolina, the time when their flight left. So, Connie, do you have this book? You have this book already, or have you read this book already? Because well, see, I'll just speak on myself, right? Because like you stated earlier, different people have their own thoughts towards this case. Yes, I'm looking through it now. No, I didn't read all of it before because I thought it was like fiction. I was kind of right. Well, as far as me, right, I don't per se look at this book as fiction, right? I look at this book as exactly what it's supposed to be, letters from Christopher. Now, whether you believe what Christopher is saying or not, you know, I, me personally, I simply look at this as what the title says, letters from Christopher. And I'm interested due to that fact itself that there are, in Chris's words, what happened. Now, I can say, um, I just purchased this book again. I read it before, but now I got it where I can actually go through it for you guys. So what is interesting is the point of when he starts to recount what he actually did, what he was thinking when he was doing these things, and so on and so on. For me, for some reason, and I might just be the only person in the world like this, but what he's saying, I kind of believe it. Now, what would make me not want to believe him or not believe him is if he didn't take any accountability for what he's done. Now, true enough, he has times where he's speaking on a outer force, in some ways and fashion controlling him. But even with that, that's not an uncommon thing for a murderer to say. That's not an uncommon thing for a person to say, period. There's people who have not committed a crime such as this who feels like something was controlling them or some type of spirit inhabited their self-being and caused them to do something, you know, very bad or out the ordinary or something of that nature. She is selling it as factual, and it isn't. Um, I'm appreciative of this book. How about I say that, and I'm just speaking on my own myself, right? I'm appreciative that she took the time to go and talk to this man and get more information to provide to us. Now, me being my own individual person, I don't have to hang on every whim of what she says or what he says. I can take those things, input it into my own mind, and come up with my own conclusions and theories and thought process from here. But when you want to start to discuss facts versus fiction, right? I like to look at fact and fiction like it's on a balance beam type of bar, a balance beam scale type of thing, right? So, what I like to do myself, I like to take some of the theories and some of the things that's been put out there, and I'll drop it onto the fact and fiction side to kind of see, which one leans towards fact or fiction more. Now, because we wasn't there to see any of this, we can always have that, that reservance of thinking, hey, maybe it didn't go that type of way. But the goal is to get as close as to facts as possible. One thing for sure that most definitely has to go on the fictional side is the fact that Chris, along with anyone else, did this crime. So for me, I like to start right there at the bottom. First thing first, towards the fictional side, is that Chris had an accomplice in any of this. That's at the bottom of the barrel for me. Then I'll level up to the point of he wasn't in control of what he was doing. It was as if something was controlling him, making him do this, and in his mind, he did not want to do this. That's the next step up of fictional to me, because I personally feel like he wanted to do this. He consciously decided to do this, and it's proven by the ways that he tried to cover all of this up. If he was a true, good-hearted person who had an outer-body experience and did something like this, the first thing he would have did was switch back to being a good person. And what does a good person do when you find out something terrible has happened? You call for help. You call for help. Chris didn't call for help. He felt like he didn't need help. He decided to take care of this matter on his own. So that would be next on the level of fictional for me. And then so on and so on, so on and so on. Connie says, I have been too. I love literature, and seeing the BS in this book has helped me see the BS elsewhere. I appreciate it. Right. It's always best to do that one thing, Connie. Regardless if you believe or don't believe what comes out of the book or what anybody says, the best thing to do is just take information, take it in, and come up with your own assumptions and your own types of theories. Now, of course, it would be very ignorant to take fictional aspects and develop a theory because as bad as it may sound, if you take the most fictional part of a scenario or a case such as this and you begin to develop theories behind that, then you are being a fool. Not you as far as the listeners. I'm speaking you in general about anything. It don't have to just be the Chris Watts case. It can be anything. You know, um, I'll give you an example, right? If you have, let's just say you have a wooden shed outside, and you go outside and find out your wooden shed has been burned down, okay? The factual thing to believe is that either you or somebody burned the shed down, right? The fictional thing to believe is that the three little pigs and the big bad wolf is what burned down your wooden shed. Now, I have sympathy, although not too much, for the people who like to entertain the fictional aspect of things, such as, yes, it's possible that the three little pigs and the big bad wolf burned down my wooden shed. No, no, that is not possible. But what is possible is an arsonist type of person out there saw your shed and decided he wanted to get his rocks off by burning it down. Now, of course, you got the freedom, you got the right, due to being a human being in this world, to believe the factual or the fictional aspect of the thing. You got that right. But is it right? Is it right to endeavor into the most fictional aspect of a scenario? Now, what I mean by all that in pertaining to the Chris Watts case is the aspect of Chris and Nicole Kessinger killed his whole family, or Chris plus another guy or another woman killed his whole family. That is the most fictional aspect of this case. Although in a parallel universe, somewhere in the world, some way, form, or fashion, wishing upon a star, it might be 1% truth in that. The fact of the matter is, as far as what we all know consciously, that is completely fictional. So if you starting your basis of your theory with Chris and someone did this, then there's no way, in my opinion, there's no way you can get to the actual facts of this case because you're so blinded and caught up into the fiction. You just can't. Going back to the whole, if you walk outside and see your wooden shed burned down, there's no way you and the police officers can conduct a proper investigation to find the no-life who burned down your wooden shed if you are stuck believing that the three little pigs burned it down. Do you get what I mean? There's no way you can bring the actual person to justice if you believe the fictional aspect of it that is so fictional that it's like, how can you even believe that? How can what gives you what is the information that's out there that makes you want to even entertain that aspect? But that's just me. Now, I can say There are some people who come up with alternate theories, and they are very well constructed. I give them that. Once again, some of the alternate theories that I have heard in the past are very well constructed, but in my opinion, it's not what it is. Um, yeah, questions and curiosity. Yep. So, Connie, you just brought up an interesting fact, right? Because I'm sure that's the story of a lot of people who look into this case. A lot of people have gotten caught up in the aspect of Nicole Kessinger in believing since day one that she has something to do with this, and y'all see that my battery going dead. Never mind that. But there is also, yeah, like I was saying, there's a lot of people who believe that, who think that Nicole was a part of this crime, you know. And like I said, a lot of people have some very constructed theories behind that aspect of it. But the way I look at this, and this is just me, the way I look at it is, there's nothing telling me that Nicole had something to do with it, but there's everything telling me that Chris did this alone. Once again, there's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing saying Nicole had anything to do with this, but there's everything saying that Chris did this alone. And that's just my opinion. Mine. But I'm gonna read a little bit more from this before we close out, you guys. So bear with me. Let me go to the next page. Okay. It says, so this is where I stepped from a normal life into the life of the insane. I never had an interest in anything like this before, and I was being warned that hearing all of the intricacies of the murders, especially one with very small children, can mess with my psyche. That warning was very correct. I myself had to have counseling after listening to the deep details of this case. I found myself not able to sleep many nights, and when sleep did come, I would dream about the case. From the first meeting with Christopher, as he talked about what had happened, I could honestly feel the darkness of it. I had always believed a person who could kill someone in cold blood must be insane. No one could possibly be sane and do this. It was confusing, however, because Christopher seemed so nice and thoughtful and sort of boyish. Even though shy and reserved, it did not take long for him to start opening up to me. I don't think I had prepared myself for what I was about to hear. So that's a nice little portion to the introduction that she placed. I'm gonna go on to the next part, to the next page. Now we enter into chapter 1. Crossing into the unknown, out of suffering has emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. Khalil Gibran. That's where that quote is from. Like I said, we're now entering into chapter 1. Everything that I was reading from before was the introduction to her book. So, Why not choose this as the stopping point for this particular live show? What I will do is each day that goes by, or may I not say each day, but I will begin to cover each chapter. I will read parts of the chapter to you guys, and we are going to discussion about what's being read or what's being said from that point. So we can have more of a ground basis on what to do our discussions, where our discussions are come from. So it won't be so much he say, she say, but you know, as far as having a concrete starting point for a discussion, we have this book. And once again, we've made it to chapter 1. We've got to chapter 1, and we're going to go on from there. Now, before I end this live show, I'd like to say thank you to whoever listened. Thank you to whoever joined this. Thank you to whoever might click on this video in the future. Thank you. If you have any comments or any insight on the introduction portion, or maybe it was something I said that you might want to elaborate on or something, feel free to leave a comment on the videos. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, and leave a comment if you on certain videos that you like. If you like certain videos or you don't like certain things in a video, feel free to leave it as a comment. It doesn't hurt. Also, if there's other aspects of this case that you would like to hear me discuss, also leave it in the comment section. Okay? Thanks to everyone. Once again, I appreciate y'all. Thanks Wayne, the Queen C, Connie Gustafson, and to whoever else may be listening to this. Thanks once again. I can't say it enough. I will see you guys next time. Peace.